There we go. For those of you that do not know Matt,
What's up, guys?
if you go follow at the 203K way, if there's an underscore, period, a space, an extra letter, it's a scam. Don't follow it. This man right here drops some incredible knowledge and information on 203K, virtually anything real estate, but his specialty is the 203K. It is a very underutilized opportunity for new investors. I've had the privilege of meeting several of his students that have nothing but the greatest things to say, that have seen incredible results. But it's very underutilized. It's not as hard as people make it out to be, but it is an incredible vehicle for gaining massive equity, which he personally has personal experience doing as well. Not just a talking head that hasn't actually done anything. This man is going to drop some incredible knowledge. So
that's an awesome intro, man. You're making me sound a lot cooler than I am, I think. No, but I appreciate that, Dustin. You're the man. Thanks for inviting me on. What's up, everybody? So who here has heard of the 203K before? Just a show of hands, or type in the chat, like me, or like I just want to know what people know about it, right? So to Dustin's point, I started a community called the 203K way, and ultimately it was how I broke into real estate investing. The 203K loan is an FHA. It's a federally backed loan here in the US. And essentially what it allows you to do is it allows you to buy fixer-upper properties for you to really live in, usually temporarily, but it can allow you to build a lot of equity very quickly for a very low amount of money out of pocket and at a very low interest rate. So someone like myself that was living in New York, having a really hard time being able to afford anything, right? If anybody's in a high cost of living, I see California, New York guys here that are in high cost of living areas, right? It seems like it's impossible, right? To pick up a property, put 20-25% down in my area, places across the country, 20% down is like $150,000, right? So as a guy just starting out and trying to break into the industry, that was out of the question. So ultimately, fast forward a little bit, it was really the opportunity that I had that enabled me to get into the game, and it only required $9,500 out of my pocket. Okay, in my area, I'll save a little bit of the story for now because I want to jump right into the details and answer as many questions as I can for you guys. But what I was able to do is I was able to find a really beat up 2-family. It was literally a crack house, shit on the walls. People were using the toilet, even though the toilet wasn't working, but they were still proceeding to use the toilet, the squatters. Everyone was running from it, heading for the hills. Nobody wanted to touch this thing. And this is also in a very competitive market, very competitive atmosphere in Long Island, New York. Everyone else ran from it, but quite honestly, it was the only thing that I could afford. One of the things I learned very quickly about the FHA loan is, how many people here knew that FHA loans allow you to purchase up to a 4-unit property? Anybody know that? Anyone familiar with house hacking? Yeah. So one of the cool things about FHA loans is they allow the homeowner, the borrower, to buy up to a 4-unit property. So I actually found this out by accident. So I was realizing I couldn't get qualified for shit. Being in New York, I still made an okay salary. I was working as an engineer. I was making like, I don't know, 70,000, 80,000 a year, making a decent salary, right? But the reality is, in a high cost of living place like New York, where the taxes are out of control, I still wasn't able to get a pre-approved for anything. Like, I wasn't able to qualify for any of the houses because it was just, everything was so damn expensive. I was only really pre-approved for about like $280,000, which in New York doesn't get you damn near anything. What it did get me is a complete hole in the wall, crappy house that was pretty much falling down, 100+ years old, next to a church. You could throw a baseball to the train tracks, and it's behind a row of bars, the rowdiest part of the town, big college, rowdy bar town. Anyway, lo and behold, I found out that I could qualify for more when I was able to do that, because the FHA loan, and the 203K is an FHA loan, but allows you to wrap or add, forecast the future income of the other units on the property to your debt to income ratio. So it allowed me to effectively afford something way more than I would have been able to afford on my own. Because when I factored in what the tenant was going to be paying me every month once I moved in, I was able to qualify for up to over $350,000. And that's what I did. So what ended up happening was I picked up the property for $270,000. Again, everyone was running for the hills from this thing. I probably would have if I didn't have people behind me kind of saying, hey, go for it. And I put about $80,000 into it. It was pretty much a full gut rehab. And it probably ended up coming out of pocket with a couple more dollars here and there. But ultimately, I was all in on the property for $350,000. Now, out of that $350,000, I only had to put down $9,500. Okay. With the 203K loan, the beauty of the 203K loan is it allows you to wrap the renovation cost into the mortgage. So in my case, again, I was doing $270,000 for the down payment for purchasing the property, and then $80,000 that gets wrapped into the mortgage amount, and at closing goes into escrow and it draws down, similar to hard money. Anybody ever heard of hard money? That's the same thing there, right? So it's the same kind of premise, but again, only $9,500 out of pocket and a very low interest rate. At the time, it was probably close to where it is now, probably about 5.5%, 5% interest rate. Okay. Well, what happened was I went through, finished the renovation, walked through the process. It's very, I'll talk a little bit about the details on how to make sure to set yourself up on success for this. But after 8 months, I built $130,000 in equity off of that $9,500. It only took me 8 months. Okay. Now, this doesn't include the fact that this was my new property. I was living for free because my other tenant was paying my mortgage for me. They were covering pretty much the mortgage. So I'm now living for free. And then very shortly after that, a couple months later, I had gotten engaged to my now wife, and I moved in with her. We started planning the wedding and did that whole thing. So I started renting that out for $2,000 a month cash flow. Okay. So now in the 6 years since I got the property's up probably $300,000 in equity. I've made $150,000 passive income free and clear. That's not counting all of the properties that I bought after that initial property, right? That was the property that allowed me to go buy more, right? I had this equity that I was able to tap into and go buy more deals. So the point I'm getting at here is, and what I want to really drive home, and then I want to open it up to questions to really make this conversation with everybody. I'm here to help you guys. I took $9,500, guys. Anybody here has got $9,500. If you don't have $9,500, you could save it very quickly. I don't care who you are. And if you can't do that, real estate investing is not for you, right? 3.5%. I don't care where you are. You can save that up in any market across the board. People ask me about closing costs. We don't pay closing costs. I don't let anybody in my community pay closing costs because there's ways around it, right? You get seller's concessions. There's different ways to get around that. 3.5 is all you need to come up with. That enabled me to create over $500,000 in wealth in 6 years. Okay. That's better than any 401k. It's better than any stock. It's better than any crypto, and it sticks and bricks. And that's only the beginning. I mean, I'm going to own this property forever. It's going to set my family up forever. And that's only one property. Okay. So when I talked to people, I was just doing a live last night on my Instagram with another loan officer. And he was talking about, and we'll get into, like, a lot of people have bad things to say about the 203K and, it's a lot of paperwork and it's a pain in the ass and blah, blah, blah. The point being is, listen, I don't know about you, but let me know, guys, like, would you be willing to do a little extra paperwork if that meant creating $500,000 in free and clear wealth for only $9,500 out of your pocket? Would everybody do that for a little extra paperwork? I don't know about you, but I would, right? So when people come to me with that bullshit and they tell me, it's so hard, like, it's, don't you have to, like, find a contractor that doesn't take a deposit? Like, yeah, like, dude, like, come on, man. It puts it into perspective. The 203K loan, by far, hands down, and I will go to the grave with this, is the most powerful form of leverage that any person can use. Now, the caveat to all of this is an owner-occupied loan. Okay. So the idea is that you're buying this property and you're taking advantage of the low down payment and the low interest rate because you're saying to the bank that this is going to be your new primary residence. Now, how long you stay there and what your real intentions are, I'm not a narc. I'm not here to really justify what you're doing or not. The whole idea is that when you go for this loan, it has to make sense why you're going for it and what you're trying to do is in earnest. Okay. But at the end of the day, whether you use it once, whether you use it 1,000 times, it doesn't matter. The whole point is use it once because everybody has access to it. It's a federal loan. Everybody in the US has access to it. And it allows you to basically create tons of equity with so little risk. There's no other loan product out there that allows you to do this with so little risk. It's extremely, extremely powerful. And I really just want to drive that home. And so anybody that's interested in this, Dustin, if you want to just open it up to questions, again, I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, and I'm happy to, if you guys want that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I want to answer you guys questions. There's a lot I could go into. And as I go through the questions, I'll tell you guys best practices and really the best way to jump into this and take advantage of this if this is something that you're interested in and really leveraging into real estate.
For sure. Awesome. Thanks, man. I've heard that story many, many, many times, and it's great. As always, great to have you. Great to talk to you. Great you finally made it home after like so many flights.
Dude, I was traveling like mad. I don't like traveling. With
God.
with a little one, in the past I would have traveled no problem. No offense to my wife, but it's just like when you have kids, it changes the game. I'm sure you know that now, but it's wild.
Definitely.
Different game.
But yeah, I'm sure Carlos and I know we've got some questions lined up we'd like to kind of get through, and I'm sure we could probably take through that'll probably answer many of the questions people have before we kind of get through there. I want to open it up to Carlos here real quick because I know he's fairly unfamiliar with the 203K, but he's really kind of diving into it, and I know he'd like to things. So Carlos, what's the first question you'd like to drop in?
Yeah, cool. First off, thank you so much for your time, man. You dropped
of course.
Dropped a lot of knowledge, bro. It was really good. I've never heard of the 203K loan. There's a guy named Josh Keating in here. He brought it up, kind of told me about it, but I didn't look at it. And then Dustin said, I know somebody who can drop some knowledge for us. And so I became interested because I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is an actual strategy. And what my main question was how you said that, you have to be like, it has to be like a primary residence, even if you're house hacking.
Mm-hmm.
Are there ways around that where you can get multiple under your LLCs in your name, or is it only one?
So remember, it's an FHA loan, right? It's for home borrowers. You don't necessarily need to be a first-time home buyer, right? Remember, it's all about playing within the confines of the rules, right? At the end of the day, is this perfect for absolutely everybody? No, I'll be honest with you, right? You have to be able to get approved for a arm's length bank loan, right? It's a federal loan. It's the guidelines are federal, right? They don't ask for much. Remember, the whole point of these FHA loans are to give people a fighting chance, right? So ultimately what it's looking for is looking for 2 years of consistent income. I see a question in there as a way to qualify without W-2. Yeah, I mean, there is. What it comes down to is, what are you showing your tax returns, right? The bank, at the end of the day, right? It's not asset-based lending. It's lending based off of you and your personal, your personal standing, right? They're looking for 2 years of consistent income. W-2s preferred. Banks like boring, right? I always say they want you to be boring. They want you to be vanilla. And listen, some people here, like, you guys are business owners, whatever. Listen, I have people in my group that are in my community. I have a guy that just joined. He's got his own business. He still shows, and he's going to bring in a cosigner, and he's going to go on with a cosigner. They're going to buy the property together. The cosigner is coming up with the stable income. Plus, they're buying a multifamily property, and they're going to be able to forecast a lot of the income from the other properties into the debt to income ratio. So even though he's only showing $40,000-$50,000 a year of income, he's still qualifying for higher because he's factoring in on a 3 or 4 family. He's getting, you're able to qualify like about 60% of that other income to as added income to you. So it's almost essentially like he's getting like a $30,000 a year raise, right? And that enables him to be able to get qualified for more. But again, to answer your question, this is something where you put it under your own name. It's mostly for people that are just starting out, just kind of getting into it, have the flexibility to be, to maybe jump around their primary residence. There's other options. There's other renovation loans out there. There's something called the home style loan. So the house I'm sitting in right now, I actually don't have that bad of a taste in cabinetry and everything like that, being a home flipper. Me and my wife actually just purchased our own primary forever home 2 months ago, using a renovation loan. Again, I practice what I preached. Dustin knows the whole story. I was actually looking for a while. I mean, Ken Claudier's mastermind with Dustin. That's how we know each other. And So it was funny because I've always flipped houses and owned rentals, but we were living in a high rise in Manhattan renting. We had our first baby last year, and obviously, like a lot of other people, we were struggling with the market, right? Like there wasn't, I won't sit here and say that it's easy, right? There was a lot of competition in the market, especially when you're looking for your own house. And this is something that's going to be your forever home and something you want to grow your family in. You're a lot more conscious on where you want to be. So we were looking in like a 2-mile square radius of this part of Long Island in New York. And I mean, we were coming up short. Be honest, like I was placing offers, I was getting beat out by cash buyers, the same shit you've heard before, right? And it was and I mean, talk about like imposter syndrome, right? Like I'm the real estate guy, I'm the renovation loan guy, I'm the guy that's like supposed to have this all fucking figured out, and I can't even find my wife and my newborn son a property, right? So I got really down on it, and we were placing offer after offer. We placed about 10 offers and just absolutely got beat out on every single one. Started going off market. Okay. And that's a whole nother strategy, right? But we started going off market. And what I did was me and my wife canvassed the entire neighborhood of where we wanted to live. We drove up and down every single street, used this app called Deal Machine to track every single property that we wanted. And then we just started blitzing them with mail and just saying, hey, we're a new family looking to move into the neighborhood. You interested in selling to us privately? Now, the beauty of this is with these renovation loans, and this is, I'm going a little bit off on a tangent, but I promise this will make sense in a second. So basically what happened was we're using a home style loan, which is better for single family. And I could get more into the differences. There's really not too much, but the home style loan is essentially the exact same thing, right? So the home style loan allows you to purchase a property, wrap the renovation cost into the mortgage. It's very, and it's very flexible on it. One of the versions of the home style loan, you don't need to live in the property. Okay. However, you need to put 15% down, and it's only listed, and it's only limited to single family. Okay. Now back to my story. What we ended up doing was we knew we were only getting a single family. So I knew I was going to use a home style loan. But what it allowed me to do is when I was making offers on these properties, I was still able to make offers saying, hey, listen, we're going to take the property as is. You don't have to clean it. It's not conventional. It's not in the sense that like you could take it as is. You don't have to worry about appraisal. You don't have to worry about the condition of the property because it's the same thing. These loans allow you to buy properties that are completely distressed, right? That first one I bought was an absolute crack house. This obviously a little more livable, but it had a lot of issues. And now when everyone around me, all the realtors around me were telling me you're never going to be able to get into the market you want at the price point you want. There's no fixer uppers out there. There's all these naysayers. I was able to come in with a home style loan, which brought so many positives to the picture. We were able to lock this place up for $150,000 under market value. We actually caught them right before they listed it. So we're already $150K in equity just at the start. Now we're also going to we also have $150,000 in reno that we're going to do. And this thing is going to be worth close to $1 million when we're done. So we're going to have 200 probably plus thousand when we're done into the property, all because we're leveraging this renovation loan and doing it again. So here I am a couple of years later doing it again. I did it myself a couple of times. I helped some family members do the 203K, but here I am again doing it for my primary residence. But again, so just to give you a little bit of a framework of it, is the 203K is really good for multifamily properties if you're looking to live in one unit, rent out the others. Home style loan is a renovation loan product. It's like, think of it as like slow, hard money. Okay. It still allows you to purchase, you still have to purchase under your name, but it allows you to wrap the renovation costs into the loan, and you still need less equity. You only need 15% down. Obviously not as sexy as 3% or 3.5%, but it still allows you to do that and still be able to take advantage of the renovation product.
Especially when you get creative like you and get your $150,000 in equity right out of the gate. I love that story too. When I was watching your presentation and looking at the flyers that you actually sent out, and getting creative and to touch on what Carlos actually said, I believe yesterday, is you got to pivot, and when something doesn't work, you just got to get creative, and the people that are actually going to find those solutions, instead of burying their head in the sand, are going to get the results from that. And that's what you did. Is you're like, okay, people aren't doing this, what am I going to do now? I'm going to go ahead and just like checklist all these freaking properties that I like and I might want, and I'm going to mail them. I'm going to mail to them. They don't even have their houses on the market. I'm just going to mail directly to them, and look what came of it. But like, I mean, that was a very insignificant cost compared to the return that you got off of it. But it's that momentum that you took to get to that next stage and
Yep.
actually say like, all right, I'm going to take a risk and I'm just going to go do this, even though nobody else has done it and nobody has said that this is guaranteed to work. I'm going to put myself out there and do it. And look what you got. That's awesome.
Well, listen, man, you were at that first one. I got emotional, right? In front of 150 people in the boardroom, right? My wife was driving. We were living in the city. We were outgrowing our apartment. Babysitting was on Long Island. That was, our family was on Long Island. So my wife is commuting 3 hours a day total, hour and a half out, hour and a half back for months. and being told week after week that you can't get what you want and you're not going to be able to find a fixer upper and realtors telling you, oh, this market's too hot, you don't have a chance in hell. And it's just like you hear all this shit and it's like, no, like fuck that, man. And it obviously Kent told me to stop being a bitch and go all in on marketing, which I did. But the point to bring around is, yeah, I mean, if you really want to crush this, find a property off market and use this opportunity. Because here's the thing, off market, typically when you're looking to buy houses off market, if people, anybody here is into that world, buying deals off market, usually it's the same hashed bullshit, right? It's I could pay cash, I could close quickly, right? My parents, they're senior owners and they've had their property for years. They get bombarded with mail and all of it sucks, right? It's all the same shit. It's all the same stuff repeated over and over again. It's just rehashed. Versus I sent greeting card style letters, handwritten. There's companies that do it. Ballpoint Marketing's who I used. And their greeting card, they look like a greeting card. They look like a wedding invitation. Like you're going to open it, right? And in there, instead of it being the same rehashed bullshit, it's, hey, me and my wife are looking to move into the area. Would you, we like your house. If you had any interest in selling, please call or text us. Boom. That's it. My phone was ringing off the hook. When listen, on the investor side, I've sent direct mail and never had the same response. But when you swap it like that and you do that, you're already getting into these, into these houses much easier. But now you could still provide that same level of service. You could still let them know, hey, listen, don't fix anything. This property, they left all their shit. They didn't fix anything and they left all their shit. It was a lady moving into a retirement home. They built this house. They literally built this house and bought the land. They built it. And they had accumulations of shit. I said, leave the stuff. You don't have to take anything out. There's some bits and pieces, repairs, the kids, people like distress comes in a lot of different forms, right? These people weren't distressed. They knew very well that they could list and get $150,000 more than what I was paying them. But the fact was you have the son that was a hotshot doctor in Manhattan living on Central Park West, doesn't need the money, doesn't really care, doesn't want to be hassled. Okay. This was a thorn in the side for him. The daughter lived down in Maryland. She's not coming up here cleaning the house. Right. And they didn't want to worry about listing it and having to go to the showings and work with realtors and everything like that. They were literally willing to take $150,000 discount solely because I was able to come in here and just say, hey, listen, we're going to take it as is. We're going to make it the easiest thing for you, period. And we're going to close in 45 days. Boom. You bring the same value to the table with these renovation loans as you could with cash. I'm closing faster. I know plenty of properties that went into contract around I did, and they were supposedly all cash, and they still haven't closed yet. But we closed in 45 days.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's awesome, man. That was fun to watch because I was there from the inception of that when you sent those out and your phone was blown up. You had tons of other opportunities. You could have even flipped those around into more of an investor.
Yeah.
Pitch.
No, I could have.
But,
I want to definitely get to some of these questions. I know people have been asking actually really good questions, so I want to get through if that's cool. I mean, unless you want me to jump into something else, see a couple of people raising their hands.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on real quick just another thing. So when you were saying back onto the 203K, I know we've got a list of other questions, but after that first year, because I know there's a year limitation where you got to be living in the property for at least a year, which for real estate, a year is kind of the timeline for a lot of different things. But after that year, what are you able to do with that property? Are you able to sell it into your LLC? Are you able to work its way up, or is there any sort of limitation for that?
So here's the thing, right? Like the way I teach the strategy is I want people to hold the property. I want them to be cash flowing assets that, it's basically house hacking and the BRRRR strategy combined. If you guys are familiar with house hacking and the BRRRR strategy, right? BRRRR Burst strategy is actually kind of the opposite. The true burst strategy is that you buy a house all cash plus the renovation. You save up enough to buy it all cash yourself with your own money. You do a renovation on it, build equity into it, pull the money back out and repeat the process and just keep doing that, right? You're building more equity on these rentals. So this is what you're doing. The only flip side is you're doing the complete opposite of putting 100% down. You're putting 3.5, right? So the value there is that you're building equity quick, and then you can then very quickly when you stop the rent, when you're done with the renovation, pull that money back out via home equity line of credit or a cash out refi, or there's a lot of different options out there. Pull that back out and then go do something else, right? Here's the honest opinion. One of the probably number one question I get asked is, how many times can you do this? And I've mulled over this question a lot of different times, but ultimately, the question I ask back to people is this. I said, whether I say once or 1,000 times, would it change if you do it? Right? So here's the thing. If you do it once, you're still taking full advantage of it, and you're still going to fucking rocket your wealth and your cash flow potential off of 10 grand, right? You're setting yourself up for life. You're giving yourself the best retirement fund, something that's going to perform better than any 401k. You're doing that with pennies, right? Why not take advantage of it once? Now, can you repeat it? Sure. Do I think you should repeat it? No, not really. Because what happens is, guys, is like, once you get this first one, you're going to build a lot of equity. You're going to 10x your money, 15x your money, if you're looking at it through the eyes of an investor and kind of the way I teach it. But you're going to 10x your money. You're immediately going to tap into that money like I did. And then I bought a flip 6 months later, right? And I went and I turned that into another $30,000. Then I did another flip and turned that to another 60,000, right? And then I turned that to another 120,000, right? So I was just flipping with that initial equity as I'm getting the cash flow from the rental on that property, right? So the whole idea is like you having to live there for a year. Yeah. So the whole idea is like, you have to say you're going to live there, right? The bank's not going to give you these cushy terms if they don't think you're going to live there, right? They learned from 2008, right? 2008, what happens? Everyone said, fuck it to all the properties that they were completely over leveraged on. But what were the properties that they made damn sure to pay the payments on? Their primary, right? Sure. Their primary, you're going to make your payments on because you don't want to be homeless, right? So they know that they're going to reward you for that. They know that you're more likely to stay in your primary long-term and you're going to make your payments on your primary. So that's why they give you all these nice benefits. Now, that being said, the year is a guideline. Okay. At the end of the day, is someone going to inspect it? I've heard stories. If you start doing weird shit, yeah, they might, and you're held liable for it. Realistically, is it going to happen? Probably not. Okay. But the point being is you have to say that you're doing it. Now, whether you're there for the year or not, it doesn't really matter. The whole idea is you're in there, you're getting into this property in earnest. Whatever you do with it, just make sure you pay your mortgage every month. And I say, listen, I'm not a narc. You guys do whatever you want. You do this at your own risk. I say that you should follow the guidelines because what else do you have to lose? It's a year of your life. It's not going to change anything, right? But you could be dishonest with everybody on the table. The one piece of advice I could give is do not be dishonest with your insurance company. Okay. But if you are living there and you saying you're living there, you tell your insurance company that it's owner occupied and it's not, and that motherfucker burns to the ground, you are out of a lot of money. Okay. They're going to make sure that you're being honest about what you're doing with that property. So the insurance company needs to know what's actually going on with that property. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, whether you live there for a year or not is up to you. And it's a year from the closing date. So it's a year from the date you purchase. So in my case, my renovation took 8 months after closing. So I technically I immediately refinanced and I immediately refinanced, got rid of the mortgage insurance, got a lower rate, immediately refinanced. And then effectively I was kind of out of the FHA guideline of you being there. And again, I never really fully moved in, to be honest, guys. I did for a little bit, but I had we just moved in with my wife. I had no reason to live there. I wasn't really ready to, I didn't have to be on my own. I was living with her. So I bought back out of it. Right. I was, so a year later, I was out of it anyway. But you want to take that and use that equity that you leverage to go buy juicier deals, use different payment methods. Like, people in my community, they're going and they're leveraging their equity and they're combining it with hard money or private capital.
Yeah. So I think for tax purposes, my question was towards, so at the end of that, once you fulfill that, guideline, essentially, then you can cash out, pull the equity out of it, and then possibly sell it to your LLC and then manage that.
I'm anti LLC in the beginning.
Yeah.
Call me, I sometimes I catch flack for that. There's some people that agree with me on this. Guys, you don't need like, people go crazy about the LLC thing. You need an LLC when you have assets to protect. If this is your first, you're starting out, like, at the end of the day, like, when you convert it into an LLC, you're creating more problems than it's worth, right? You're giving all the opportunity for the mortgage company to call the loan. They might try to increase your interest rate because they're now calling it an investment property. There's a lot of stuff that could go wrong with this, right? Save the LLC for other properties, right? For this one, keep it under your name and then just put an umbrella policy on it. Like, I have a fucking $10 million umbrella policy on it. Like, at the end of the day, like, have good tenants. It is what it is. Like, I'm not worried about that one property. It's worth way more to me staying in a conventional loan than me quit claiming it to an LLC. I could still, dude, it's just because it's not under an LLC doesn't mean I can't get all the tax benefits of it being a rental property. I still depreciate it. I still get all the tax benefits of having it under my name. Because it's still filed as a rental property, right? So that's my honest opinion on it. If you have a lot of other stuff, yeah, I mean, listen, there's options where you could, but just be ready to end up paying a higher interest rate on it, and maybe kind of getting into a position where your where your bank's going to call the loan or dick around on you.
I love it. Awesome. Yeah, let's open it up to others. Every single person that has a question here, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll just go one at a time. I know Robert is over here. He's probably had that thing raised since before you even got on. All right, let's open it up, and I'm gonna go ahead and ask you to unmute. We'll go ahead and go through the questions, guys. There we go, Robert.
You're muted
Hey,
again.
Matt. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Thanks,
Appreciate
man.
it.
How you doing, Robert? How's it going, man?
All right, great. Well, I'm down here at Tampa, and then also in Savannah, other family members. I'm wondering, how does that work for like historic areas? Is there any restrictions on that?
No, I mean, listen, the 203K is actually a very forgiving loan. The renovations that you're allowed to do, the condition of the property, there's no specific loan. Like, people ask me all the time, like, is there a limit on the renovations you could do, or is there a certain amount you need to do or anything like that? It's extremely flexible, right? Generally, your only limit is what you can afford on your pre-approval, right? One higher than that is there's FHA loan limits in every single county in the United States. And any United States owned Providence or, like Puerto Rico qualifies. You could do it in Guam. Like you could do these anywhere that it's an American territory. But the point I'm making is, Robert, is really no limitation with it. Obviously, your limitation there is going to be more like zoning and more like dealing with the local historical board and that whole thing. But if you need to do certain type of historical restoration type deals to confide or comply with the historical society's requirements on restoration, that can absolutely be wrapped into the 203K loan. Now, will it be worth it at that point? That's a different question. But at the end of the day, you can wrap in that cost into the loan completely fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Different question.
Robert, go ahead. Next person, Rosie, go for it. Ask your question.
I'm sorry, you said Rosie, right? All right, so
Yeah,
my
I'll
question is, I just recently I closed on FHA. For one,
Congrats.
my first question is, thank you. Can I refinance it out of that so I could use it again for multifamily?
Good question. This gets asked a lot. So this is one area where it gets a little tricky. The short answer is yes, you can. The long answer is that banks, underwriters specifically, typically don't like when you go up in units unless you have a very good reason for it. Okay. And for an example, okay, if you're living in a single family home on the edge of town, you got a nice yard, you got, nice place to live, and then you say you want to go buy a quadplex in city center next to the train tracks, the guidelines state that maybe it's possible or doable, but you have to have very good reason, and they want to know what you're doing with that exit property, right? There's some guidelines on if you're keeping that property, you have to have a certain amount of equity in it, you have to have a standing lease in it, it has to qualify on your debt to income ratio. Generally speaking, it's frowned upon. Are there people in my group that have successfully gotten with a lender and proven to them, hey, listen, I'm going from a single family to a duplex because it's closer to work, and my cousin's going to live in the other unit? Or listen, at the end of the day, if there's a will, there's a way. But just so you know, yes, you can refinance out of it. The rule with FHA is you're only allowed to have one at any given time. The only time you're allowed to have more than two is if you have one property in existing FHA and you're moving maybe for work or some family purpose, you're moving to a different state, or you're moving like 150, 200 plus miles away, then they'll allow you to have both coexist at the same time because you have like extenuating life circumstances that allow you to do that. But in your case, Rosie, was it?
Yeah.
So basically in your case, yeah, you can refinance out of that into conventional, and then you have the ability to use the 203K again on your next one. Now, again, you have to make it your new primary, and you have to make a very good case to the lender on what you're doing with your current property, what's happening with it, and what the situation is with it. It's one of those like kind of sticky slopes that sometimes maybe you're worth the squeeze. It's not. It really depends on your goals.
And then my second question was like, so let's just say that I decide to stay with this property for a year. Can I use FHA again for the next property, or is it a one-time for the first-time buyers, or it's just a one-time use?
No, you're eligible for it as long as you don't have one in your name or an existing one, and you're making it your new primary residence. And your existing property that you're holding has an exit strategy with it, right? If you plan on keeping the property. Now, if you sell it, it doesn't matter, right? You're selling it, you're just moving from one mortgage to another. They don't care about that, right? That happens all the time. People sell their house and move to another house all the time. But if you're keeping it and you're renting it out, it's going to be a little bit of a dance with the lender to identify what the actual deal is going to be with the existing property, what's happening with that, kind of why you're moving. They really want to make sure they don't want people to exploit this loan. If people exploited this loan and they just gave it to everybody, it wouldn't be special. It wouldn't have the power that it has, right? I tell people all the time, the 203K is a perfect example of with great power comes great responsibility, right? This is an exceedingly egregious form of leverage that they're letting the average homeowner and average borrower buy, right? They're asking for 3.5% and a little bit of mortgage insurance in exchange for, lending potential up to in some areas, $2 million on a quadplex. It's crazy when you think of what that is. So you have to play within the rules, right? They're giving you such leverage. You have to stay within their guidelines.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Who was next in line? John, were you next? Or was it who had it up first? Was it Laura? Wasn't sure.
Okay,
Laura can go first, guys.
thanks for taking my call. So just a couple of real quick questions.
Sure.
So my daughter bought a condo during COVID, and it was FHA. And then because of work circumstances, she ended up driving 50 miles one way to work.
Okay.
So we had her move back home, and then we ended up renting her condo out.
Awesome.
So now her condo is rented out, and now she wants to buy another property,
Sure.
but we want to do it under FHA.
Sure.
So she's not moving, like she still lives, around here. So can she get another FHA? And if she can she actually do like a duplex or even a fourplex? I mean, that would be really cool to have, more income for her.
Sure. So let me unpack this a little bit. So the current situation she's in, all right, the condo's still under FHA, correct?
Yes.
Is there equity there to refinance it or no?
Well, I'm sure there is because I live in California, in Southern California. So
Okay. So here's what I would tell you. Here's what I would tell you at face value. So number one, if she wants to go buy another property, even though that existing one's under FHA, that's totally doable. Now, if she wants to use a renovation loan and build equity on this next property, also entirely doable. If you're okay with doing single family, you can use a home style loan. Okay. Home style loan is Fannie Mae's version of the 203K. And that allows you, they don't care if you have an FHA because it's a completely separate loan. The guidelines are different, right? So what that allows you to do is you can go and you can still keep that remaining FHA. Fannie Mae's guidelines are way less stringent in the sense of they don't care if she's got another loan to her name. As long as she could afford it on her debt to income ratio, they'll see that she's getting rent from that condo as long as you're showing it. She'll see that you're getting rent from that condo. And they will have no problem with her going out and using a home style loan to buy her next property. It makes sense, right? She was driving 50 miles a way because of pandemic, got mixed up everybody's work stuff. She moved back home. She's renting it out because she wanted to still hold on to it. Now she's ready to buy a house, maybe closer to work. Okay. She could use a home style loan for that. Now, the question you asked was, could she do a multifamily property or something like that? That's where it gets a little tricky. Okay. And this is kind of splitting hairs here, but at the end of the day, you're going to have an existing FHA that really, if you're holding on to that and you're trying to buy a multifamily, they're really not going to go for it. You have a fighting chance if that gets refinanced into a conventional loan or a different product that's not FHA. It opens up your capability for FHA again. And then she could certainly go buy a duplex or a triplex or a quad, so long as she qualifies for it. There's a lot of different, I'm sure you could get like a DSCR loan on that condo or some other type of loan that gets her out of that. And then you have a much better ability to go into it because again, you have root cause, you have a probable reason as to why she's doing it, right? She's going to move closer to work. That'll make a lot of sense. And they won't ask her as much about that condo anymore. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah. And she's totally a shark. She's in car sales.
Awesome. So that's perfect, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect scenario for her. What I would say is really start entertaining options and looking into different loan products that you can get out of that FHA on that condo. And then that's going to open up the possibility for her to do a multifam. But again, don't rule out just doing a single family and building equity, doing like a live and flip type of thing, kind of similar to what I'm doing with my wife right now. Again, we're staying here long term, but we're going to have equity in our property instead of losing it, right? I think the dumbest thing you could do is go pay top dollar for a move and renting house. Like use the elbow grease, build equity into the deal using the bank's money. It's a win-win-win. One additional thing I want to add, especially being in California, you have ADUs in California, right? Accessory dwelling units. Okay. So that's a big popular thing in California, and it's sweeping, they're sweeping legislation where I think every single family can qualify for it, right? So what you can do with a home style is you can buy it. You could buy a property and use the home style to build an ADU, finance the ADU construction with the home style loan. And now that's going to create a cash flowing accessory unit in your property. and she still has the single family, and she's still not going through all those regulations and concerns with that. She's still getting into that property, and she's still creating cash flowing. It's technically not a duplex. It's an accessory unit, right? It gets kind of taxed and billed differently, but you know, that's a big thing people are doing out in California is they're buying properties and using these renovation loans to build their ADUs.
Yeah, they are. It's kind of interesting to see how our property's being changed.
Yeah. Listen, you know, can't beat them, join them, right? At the end of the day, it's you know, it's an opportunity to create more cash flow on the property. And you know, especially with, you know, you're just like New York here. Rents are fucking wild, right? So, you know, you could put a, you know, you could put a closet and you know, and put a barn door on it, and people go nuts on it and pay $2,000 a month for it, right? That, you know, you have that luxury, right?
Yeah. So that, I mean, it's really hard because now it's like I'm thinking, oh my gosh, because her interest rate's 2.25% because we refied literally January.
Yeah, so don't refi.
21.
So they just do the home style thing. So they just do the home style then. I mean, that's your answer, right? I wouldn't refi that then at that rate. Like, you're not going to get that rate again. You know,
Never.
it sucks. It's FHA, but that doesn't eliminate you from taking advantage of it, using a rental loan product and going and buying another house. Again,
And she has
Fannie
to
Mae
be a
doesn't give a
primary,
shit.
right?
What?
It has to be a primary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what allows you to put 3% down. Fannie Mae actually requires 3%. It's actually not even 3.5. It's 3. So it's, you know, or it's either anywhere from 3 to 5, depending on like your credit and stuff like that. But very little down, and you could build a cash flowing ADU on it.
Yeah. I was trying to get her to do even something like a short-term rental, but that's not going to work for FHA.
No, I mean, again, you have to occupy the property, right? But she has an explanation as to her living there, whether she lives there or not. You know, again, she could continue to live with you, right? But on paper, that's her primary.
Right.
You know? As long as you're reporting it that way, she can, if she wants to, you know, if you're cool with her still living home. You know, I was lucky, like my parents liked me enough that I was able to stay with them for a little while longer, but you know, that's another option too, right? It's just going to be another name on the property. And as long as she qualifies financially for it and she pays that mortgage at the first of every month, they don't give a shit.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Great questions.
That was fire, guys.
Good questions, Laura. Good stuff. And
Thanks, guys.
we'll get through this. We have 4 or 5 more questions. So John, go ahead and shoot it right away so we can get this going.
Right on, brother. Matt, just wanted to say thank you again for bringing all this value. I never even knew what a 203K loan was before today.
Sure thing, man. Yeah, I'm glad you're in the world now. Now you know. Now you took the red pill.
Yeah, right. So my question is, you mentioned that it's a first time, it's an FHA loan, so, you know, home buyer. So what it allows you to do is wrap the mortgage, the cost of the house, and the renovations into one.
Yep.
And you have to, when you qualify, do you have to qualify for the amount of the purchase price and the renovation put together?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So they'll give you, so say if you're pre-approved for 400,000, you need to fit that renovation budget and the purchase price in that 400,000, you know, minus the down payment.
Gotcha. And the down payment is just that 3.5% on that.
Yep.
Okay. Very cool.
So for a $500,000 budget, you're putting down 17.5 grand.
Okay.
I mean, you
awesome.
Think about that, right? Yeah. I have a guy in my group. He bought a property. Basically it's about $1 million property here in New York. It's a duplex with an accessory unit that's just going to become an Airbnb, right? He controls $1 million asset in New York, multifamily property, controls it, owns it, is guaranteed to be a millionaire, and all he put down was 35 grand. He's a guaranteed millionaire. I don't think, I tell him that all the time, and I don't think he understands that. $35,000, he's guaranteed millionaire. That's assuming that the market just stays flat. That's also not counting the $4,000 a month in net cash flow that he's going to get off that property. That doesn't count the depreciation that he's taking on the property as well. right? So when you think about what the earning potential is on such a low amount out of pocket, it's crazy, especially when you start looking at economies of scale, right? When you look at it's like, yeah, it's 3.5 all the way up. So $1 million property, you can buy $1 million property or buy a $750,000 property, put 250,000 into it, kind of like he's doing. It's going to be worth 1.2, 1.3 when he's done. So he's building 300,000 in equity and he only put 35 grand out of his pocket, period. That was it. His seller covered his closing costs.
That's wild. That's wild.
I wanted to
Right
add
on.
to
That's all I got. I just wanted some clarity on how the loan works itself.
I wanted to add to something John asked. Like when you're qualifying for the loan, I'm not sure if I wrote this down right, but earlier when you first started talking about it, did you say that you can add like the projected rent
Yep.
to be able to increase the loan amount?
Yeah, so the way it works is on a two family, they qualify at 75 to 80%, kind of depending on a couple of factors of the market rent on the other unit, to your projected income. So in my case, I was going to get an extra $2,000 a month from that other unit. Okay, it's New York. Yeah, rents are crazy here. So $2,000 a month, but that effectively gave me a $2,000 a month or $1,800 because they took 75% of that or 80% of that. So let's call it, $1,700 a month raise on paper. So you think about you think about what your pre-approval is now. Imagine you had a $1,700 raise per month, and that's net, right? That's net. That's not before taxes. They take it net. They just hit you. They hit you bare bones with it, right? So that blasted up my pre-approval. I went from only being pre-approved for like 240, 50, 60,000 to 360,000 just because of that other unit. On a 3-family and a 4-family, it gets a little trickier. Triplexes and quads, they sound sexier, but in my opinion, I think duplexes are the sweet spot. I still have plenty of people in my group. I'd say a lot of people, most people like still end up going for tris and quads. But with that, they don't forecast as much because they're taking into account vacancy. So they're looking at closer to like 50 to 60% of that projected income. So it still ends up being usually more. But they only take half of it. So if the other 2 units you're getting 4,000, they're still only going to give you 2,000. Or the 3 units you're getting 2,000 each. They're going to give you 3,500, right? So it's not as big of a bump, because the reality is more doors, more problems. That's the way the bank looks at it. So, and there's also a thing that they add called the self-sufficiency test. I won't get too much into that. It confuses the shit out of people. And my whole mantra is if your property doesn't pass the self-sufficiency test, it's not a fucking good deal and you shouldn't buy it. People tell me, they're like, oh, well, I can't get past the self-sufficiency test. I'm like, that means it's a bad deal and you locked it up for too high a price. Because if you buy a quadplex and the thing can't pay for itself, that's a complete ticking time bomb, right? That's way too many doors, way too much liability, and it doesn't even cash flow. Fuck that, dude.
Dude, that's fucking fire, bro. That's so fire. I was just like, that's such an advantage just to be able to do, just to put your performa basically in there, your projected rents, kind of look at it like multifamily. Fucking dope.
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, it gives people a fighting chance, right? You can basically go as a single borrower and turn yourself into you get a co-borrower from your future tenant that doesn't even fucking exist yet. You're essentially going in with a co-borrower, right? Listen, the game is insane, right? When you start really learning, and there's so much more to it, but the game is insane when you realize the power. Again, it's just so powerful. You just got to know how to use it, right?
Fire, dude. Thanks for answering my question. Willie, go ahead and put on if you're able to be visible, show your camera, ask your question. Let's try to make these like 5-10 minutes. So then I know the time and everything's late for everybody in the evening, and we have Matt here and we can ask him a million questions and I'm sure he'd answer them all, but let's keep them like 5 or 10 minutes. So
I would. Yeah. But let's just keep rolling. We'll get to as many as we can.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Go ahead, Willie.
What are the 4 main points you would say of the 203K? Because I think I'm gonna go with the 4 for 4 since it's a 4-plex.
Okay. So 4 main points, like 4 things that I think everybody should know about the 203K before they get into it, like what things to look out for, that type of thing.
Correct.
Okay. Number 1, most important, write this down if you guys are looking to do something like this. Number one, the most important probably factor of this entire process is ensuring that you are working with a lender that not only is familiar with, but hopefully specializes in these types of loans and renovation loans in general. Okay. There's a lot of different ways to find them. If you join my Facebook community, I will hook you up with people. I'm connected with every renovation lender in the country. The point being is you just want to work with lenders that know it. Don't make the mistake I made. The first one I did, I skipped my story. But you know, the guy that I did it with is this guy, EJ. Dustin, you met EJ. So EJ is a hot talking New York guy. I asked him about the 203K because I had heard about it from a mentor at a local real estate investment group. And I called him. I'm like, hey man, you know about 203Ks? He's like, yeah, dude, we're going to fucking, yeah, that'd be great for you. That's the perfect thing. Like, yeah, I can't believe I didn't think about this for you. Yeah, let's get you started, man. Like before I knew it, at the end of the day, I was pre-approved. Okay. Now I fast forward a couple months into the loan, I realized that he nor did anybody in his office have any fucking clue what to do with the 203K loan. I mean, it was like I got gaslit. I got gaslit. I had fucking anxiety attacks. It was nuts. And I'm not saying this to scare you guys. I'm saying this to let you know that it doesn't need to be this way at all. Okay. You know, that took me forever to close. It was nuts. It was horrible. Fast forward, me and my wife's property, we closed in 45 days. Okay. That's faster than most conventional. And we did it on a $150,000 renovation budget. And this is a very big loan. Okay. This wasn't like a small loan that we took out on the property, bigger loan, more complex. But when you have the players that understand the process, it actually goes quite quick. Because the other thing too is like, you're not going back and forth about the bullshit in the onesie twosie, like, oh, the inspection said this, and you know, I'm looking for a concession here because the roof's leaking. Like none of that shit matters, right? You know, you're going to fix everything. You're taking the property as is. So there's none of that back and forth. So that's number one. Number two is getting, obviously number two is like kind of going to get more into the team, but I would wrap number one is, you know, having an entire team in general, right? Making sure that you have a good 203K consultant, a consultant that understands the process. The 203K consultant is basically like a home inspector and a cost estimator. They're a combination of the two. They're basically the draw specialist. They're the one that help you create the scope of work and help you like get to the bottom of like what the renovation is going to be done so that they can submit that to the bank, and the bank knows what money to hold into escrow and what it's going to be itemized to as you go through the renovation process. So having the right lender, having a good 203K consultant, and then ultimately it'll lead me into the next thing, which is making sure you have a good contractor and someone that's qualified for this. Number two, hire the best contractor that you can afford, hands down. I mean, this just goes across the board. This isn't just fucking 203Ks. I mean, this is just everybody. You use a cheap contractor, it will catch up to you. I don't care who you think you are. It's funny, you watch every TV show, every single newbie in the book thinks that they're the exception to the rule and they could somehow fucking skirt the renovation and cut corners. And well, you know, my brother's dad is really handy. And my brother's dad would be my dad, right? My brother's cousin's best friend's sister is a contractor, right? You got to hire the best contractor you can afford. You can't get the guy that's working out of the back of his truck. You can't get the guy that's a handyman. You need the guy that's licensed, bonded, insured, has crews, and has financial backing. Those are the people you want to use for this and every project you ever do. My whole background's in construction. I grew up in the industry, and I'm saying this from experience. Work with people. You get what you pay for, period. That in this industry, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Third is once you have these contractors and you're referencing them, one of the biggest mistakes people make is they bring their contractor into the property to start looking at the renovation and they start creating a scope of work before the consultant does. As soon as you get into contract on a property, the first thing that should happen is that you and your consultant should go into the property to perform an inspection and create something called an SOR. An SOR is basically the scope of work. It's a schedule of repairs. So basically what the 203K consultant does is they go through and they inspect the property. They see everything that needs to be fixed per code, guidelines, health and safety, and FHA guidelines, okay? Then they're going to ask you, what do you want to do to the property? You're right. Do you want to add new kitchens and baths? What do you want to do? What do you want? What are your wants, desires, whatever? Then what they're going to do is they're going to go in and they're going to create a scope of work based on what needs to be fixed and based on what you want. They're also going to give a cost estimate that's completely irrelevant of any other contractor's bids. Huge red flag. Write this down. If a 203K consultant asks you for the contractor's bid to create their SOR, that 203K consultant has no fucking clue what they're doing, and you should fire them immediately. That's not in the guidelines. A lot of lazy ones out there try to do it. A lot of them try to get away with doing that, so it makes their life a lot easier. And basically what they do is they just have the contractor do all the work for them. It always ends up blowing in their face because the contractor doesn't know what's required per FHA guidelines, per local code. That's the inspector's job, right? So this inspector not only needs to know how to inspect a property, but they need to know how to give a rough cost estimate, okay? So that leads me to number 4, which is the most important thing. And this is the best way to make sure that you have a good project and it goes smoothly. When they give you that SOR report, okay, that SOR report is going to go line item by line item of everything that's going to be done to the property, which is great. Okay. Where people fuck up on renovations is they go in with no clear scope of work. Again, I worked large construction in New York City for 10 years. There was not a single project that did not have a line item delineated scope of work. And if we were bidding it out to contractors, we were sending them all the exact same scope of work. And the contractors were putting in their labor and material for each line item. And that's how the line items got compared. That's how you make sure that you're comparing apples to apples between contractors. That's how you make sure that you're not getting fucked on one contractor versus another, because you're looking across the board and you're seeing, okay, this contractor is going to cost, this contractor's, about $15,000 for the kitchen. This contractor's $18,000. Oh, this contractor is $4,000 for the kitchen. Are you just getting a really fucking good deal, or does that guy have absolutely no idea what he's doing? Right. So that's the next part. So what you want to do is you want to take that scope of work, that schedule of repairs, and you are basically dropping that out, writing it out, and you are putting labor and material. It's called leveling the bid in the business. That's what they call it. But basically what you're doing is you're comparing apples to apples. And what you're doing is you are comparing and you're seeing where guys are high, where guys are low. But most importantly, you're getting a clear scope of work and you're going to be able to shop out your contractors on a fair slate. And that way nothing gets missed in the scope, right? People, the biggest issue people have is like contractors just give them a bulk sum and then they don't know where they were high, where they were low. And then you find out as you go that the guy runs out of money because he thought the kitchen was going to be $5,000 and it was actually going to cost him 15. So those are the key points, Willie. Hopefully, is this helpful? Hopefully you wrote this down and hopefully it answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
That was fire.
And that, guys, this is like, that's construction 101 in general too. So like, if you're like watching and you're like, I don't know if the 203K is right for me. Like, this is my construction experience. My dad's been a GC for 50 years. My dad's old. And I grew up in the business and that's one thing I know very well. Every project should be handled that way, not just the 203K. But it's funny when people resist that, right? People say, oh, it's too much paperwork. I mean, that's paperwork that should be getting done because people don't do that paperwork and then things ends up blowing up in their fucking face and they wonder what happened. I'm like, well, because you're treating this like a fucking hobby. Like if you treat it like a hobby, it's going to blow up in your face. If you treat it like the powerful tool that it is, I make the thing. If you give a Sawzall to a toddler versus giving it to a carpenter, you're going to have two very different results. Sawzall is a very powerful tool if you know how to use it. But if you have absolutely no idea how to use it and you think it, you're going to end up with a toddler with no limbs. That's not cool, right? We'll jump into the next one.
All right. Laura, you've been waiting patiently. You're driving now. Are you able to hop on?
I'm actually good. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand, you guys.
We're gonna have to come back to you. You're a little you're having some connection issues. So when you park or something, go ahead and go ahead and wave at the camera when you're ready, okay? All right, Cameron, let's go. Cameron, Matt, Cameron.
Appreciate it. Matt,
What's up, man?
How you been, man?
Good, doing good.
Good. Hell yeah. Good to hear, man. Well, first off, man, I want to say I appreciate you coming out and spitting some fire and ass knowledge, man. That's some good stuff.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. You guys are awesome. Great questions.
So my question is, man, can you use a VA and can you do this and you double dip, I guess, essentially using a VA loan and an FHA or no?
Yeah, I mean, you can. I think again, it just comes down to like working the guidelines and making sure that underwriters are cool with it. I have a guy in my group that's done that. And it works. There's also VA renovation loans. You can do it. It's a little trickier. There's a little more red tape on like what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. I think there's a cap of like 50,000. But yeah, you could use both. Again, you just have to make sure that it checks out and you're playing by the rules of what the underwriters allow. Also remember, guys, like the FHA loan is not like, it's not a loan given by the government, right? It's a set of guidelines that the government doesn't even really enforce, right? But it's guidelines that they give, and they give incentive to banks to do these loans, right? So ultimately, like they're like anything else, like if you get turned down by one bank, that doesn't mean you can't go to other banks. Now, again, to my point earlier, my number one biggest tip on using a renovation loan and a 203K loan specifically is you need to work with guys that know and understand this loan. And there are renovation specialists in every market. And there's usually not many of them, to be honest, right? So just because maybe you do find one that says like, yeah, we'll do it, be a little weary, because they might just be looking for your business and they don't know what the fuck they're getting themselves into.
Okay. Hell yeah, I like that. And then I actually do got one more question for you, man. So
Sure, man.
for someone who's just wants to get into this and start it right away, what would their first step be? I mean, joining your Facebook group, is that probably like the first best step to take forward, or like
if you want to do it the right way, yeah. I have a master class that explains a lot of it. I'll put the link in the chat. Perfect. I wouldn't say it's that dated. It's a little dated. I think that's the link. Just verify it. Let me know if that doesn't work. Pretty sure that's the link. But it covers everything. My Facebook also, I think Dustin posted the link in there. Yeah. My Instagram is really the best place to find me. Yeah, I don't think it worked. Hold on, give me 1 second. 203K away.
I see the link in there.
Yeah, listen, you can, I don't know why it's not.
It worked for me. That link worked for me. Yeah, it took me to.
Okay. Either way, you could just go to the 203kway.com and there'll be a link on there to the training. There's also the link to the Facebook group. And I have a book and all kinds of shit. But listen, at the end of the day, realistically, the first thing to do is that you gotta know what you can get pre-approved for. Because everything, until you start knowing that what you can get pre-approved for, and you want to go to the lender and ask to get pre-approved for the max amount. And also what's cool is they can give you conditional pre-approvals, right? So if you're looking for multifamilies, but you don't really have one on the radar, what you could do is, hey, listen, can you give me a pre-approval such that I'm buying a 2-family and the other unit is going to be renting out at like about $1,800 a month, because that's roughly what it is in my market. They're going to give you a max amount. Now they have to take some stipulations, right? They have to assume, they have to take some guesses on what the what the taxes are going to be and shit like that. But even if you're really stuck, just give them an example property, and they'll pre-qualify you on that example property. And once you see that budget, then like I'm a big I'm an engineer by trade. That's what I went to school for. So I'm a big fan of engineering, reverse engineering. Dustin, Omar, one of the things that me and Kent vibed on immediately was starting with the end in mind, right? Like working backwards. So the whole idea is like, if you're looking for a certain type of property, or you're looking at a certain budget, like you could do this at any budget, right? You just have to set your expectations. Like I have a kid, one of the first guys I worked with, Shannon, he was making like nothing. He was making like $36,000 a year here in Staten Island, New York, as a teacher's assistant, making shit for money, and he barely got pre-approved for anything. But he knew that he wanted a quadplex come hell or high water. He took it upon himself that this is what he wanted, and he had the ability, and he moved out to New Mexico, started a new job, started a new life out there, and bought a quadplex. And and he transferred to a new school and was making $38,000 out there. But out there, he was able to afford that quadplex, and he was able to get into that quadplex at $36,000 a year because he was forecasting an extra $2,000 or $3,000 a month on his income, which was basically doubling his income. So he was able to get it pre-approved and be able to qualify for a quadplex. Okay. And then he was cash flowing like $800 a month or something like that. And then he moved out, and now he's cash flowing $1,800 a month on that property. He's plus built like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in equity. And that's his first deal. Okay. And he was doing it because if there's a will, there's a way. So that's the whole idea is get pre-approved. Obviously follow my shit. I'll tell you exactly how to do it the right way. But you know, above all else, like you got to get pre-approved with a good lender that knows what you're doing. That way, you know what you're playing with, right? You know what your budget is, and then you just start looking at markets and things that gem with what you could afford.
Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, good answer. I appreciate that, Matt. Thanks again, man.
Yeah, man. Good seeing you. Good seeing you.
Absolutely good seeing you, dude.
Go. Awesome. Thanks, man. Sean, you got a question ready to ask?
Sean, you've been waiting patiently, brother. How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. I'm kind of the mastery of house hacking here. So
Okay.
I'm going to tell you a little bit and see what I can do with it.
Sure.
I've already done 4 of them. I drive truck for a living, so I've actually, like the guy from New Mexico. I'm out of Utah originally. I bought a duplex back in Minnesota, and the only way I could get it done is because I was driving, and we had a hub there, so I was able to do all the paperwork and jump through hoop after hoop after hoop, and I finally got it done. So I know what you got to do that. So I basically, since I'm not there very much, I rent out the one side of the duplex. The other side, I rent it out, but I keep one room for me. And I actually literally put a cot there with a blanket and a pillow. When I come into town, I can sleep there for a night or 2 to get a restart, and I'm gone again for 6 to 8 weeks.
Nice.
So, but now I'm wanting to move more back to Utah because my year's up and it's time to do it again.
Sure.
So without, those are all been done conventionally. Is it going to be a problem to do an FHA? Well, an FHA loan or the 203K FHA, same thing?
Same thing. Yep. Same qualifications, same everything. The only difference is the 203K allows you to buy fixer uppers and build equity and make a lot of money. FHA on its own is actually kind of a shitty loan in my opinion. But yeah, right. Like the everything that the 203, everything that is bad about the FHA, the 203K version completely negates. Right. Okay. So yeah, no, I don't foresee any issues. Obviously you have multiple properties and like your debt to income has to qualify. And if those are conventional, you could prove to the bank that those are like properties that are covering themselves and you're showing the income on those. Then they shouldn't have an issue. There's no rule that says you can't have investment properties or other properties. There's no rule with that. Again, it just, they want to make sure you're not exploiting it. Like your job, your way of life, your situation makes all the sense in the world. Some of them might contest you on it a little bit, but I know there would be a lender out there that would be willing to work within the confines of, the other thing is too, is like, again, just making sure, like, I don't know how your trucking income works, but they want to make sure that you have a consistent income and you're showing it W-2 and or not even W-2, but you're showing it on your tax returns, that type of thing.
Yeah, I do. I had to fight it a little bit and it worked. I got it to work, but the way I set my leases up is like, I'm here for a year. When I leave, your rent goes up $100, $150 because I'm not here anymore. And so it just continues on.
Yeah. I mean, that's perfect. That's perfect. And it's that money's hitting your bank account every month and you show it. And
Yep. So the next question is on an FHA, is that an ARM or a fixed 30-year?
So a great question given the current climate. I tell everybody that's doing it my way, right? Like the 203K way. Listen, guys, you can go use a 203K and go buy a property and renovate the kitchens and baths and live happily ever after, right? What I specialize in is getting people to leverage the ever living shit out of the 203K loan as a tool to create incredible amounts of wealth and cash flow very quickly with the least amount out of pocket, right? This is a very different way of doing things. Okay. So that being said, one answer to your question is, I think it's mostly fixed. I've heard that there's arms available for it. However, think of it as short-term money, right? The whole idea is that you want to immediately refinance out of it, right? Remember, so one of the downsides of FHA, right? For anybody listening right now, this is a key point. So FHA loans, right? All of them have mortgage insurance on them, right? What's mortgage insurance? Mortgage insurance is the fee and the little fee you pay every month to be part of the FHA subprime borrower club. Okay, so basically the way that this whole guideline works and why this whole thing exists is basically because the HUD wanted to find ways to get people that didn't maybe have as much money to still be able to own properties, right? And 203K, allow them to buy fixer-uppers and still have a fighting chance and revitalize towns and markets and everything like that. Okay. Now, how do they incentivize banks to do this? Number one, they pay them higher commissions on FHA loans. That's the first thing. So banks have incentives to do FHA loans. They make more money on them. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing is, well, banks are like, well, I don't want to give, the minimum credit score you need for an FHA is 580. I mean, no offense to anybody here with a 580 credit score, but you really got to fuck up to get a 580. That being said, I think the main point of this that I'm trying to say is the mortgage insurance premium is basically insurance fund. So everyone that's an FHA borrower is throwing money into a bucket. Okay. Mortgage insurance is basically this big fund that if someone defaults, the bank's not held liable and it gets picked up by the federal government, right? Because there's this insurance fund for anybody that defaults. So that's what mortgage insurance is. Now, back to your point, Sean, or back to my point in terms of adjustable rate and rates. Listen, guys, rates are going to go up, down, sideways, horizontal. Who gives a fuck? I don't look at rates and I don't judge what I'm going to do based on rates. Rates are rates. I don't give a shit if it goes up, down, sideways. At the end of the day, it's still cheap money. If you could leverage it and you can, leverage 7% to make 9%, I do that every day because you include depreciation, all this other stuff. But the whole idea is that you want to, when you do a 203K loan, as the way I teach it, you want to build sufficient equity into the deal such that you're able to refinance out immediately the same way you would as hard money. So think of 203K loans as short term, right? It's something that FHAs don't bring to the table. FHAs, you're locked into that mortgage insurance for life. When you're using a 203K, the exit strategy for everybody that I teach is that you are building 20% equity into the deal so you can immediately refinance into conventional, get a lower rate, and get rid of the $300 or $200 a month in mortgage insurance premium, which is adding more to your cash flow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's just short term. Now, saying that, can it be used for a new construction loan?
Not new construction. There is an FHA new construction loan out there. I've never heard of anybody using it. I don't know if it's ever been used. It does exist. FHA is very, very liberal in what they allow you to do. Pretty much, they just need you to have an existing residential structure of some kind. You can add units, you can subtract units. All those things are possible with the loan itself. Whether zoning allows it and everything like that is a different question. But at the end of the day, you can basically get an existing foundation and leave a wall up and completely rebuild the house. And as long as you can afford the financing cost to rebuild it, it's totally within the confines of what you're allowed to do.
Okay. You're the man. Thanks.
You're the man. Congrats on the house hacks, man. Keep doing it. This will be a great way to add into it, man, build some equity in the process.
Oh, that's the only way I've got what I've got is from house hacking.
Love it. You're killing it. That's great, man. Good for you.
Great job, Sean. Awesome. Marco.
Hey guys. Thank you for your time. My quick question is, how do you do this without closing costs?
Great question. So I'll give you the smoke right now. Two ways to do it. Number one, just literally negotiate it, right? When you're getting into a negotiation back and forth, I always say, you don't give without a take in negotiation. One of my mentors taught me there's no rules in negotiation. So you always got to be, there's no hurting feelings. It's business, right? So one of the things what I have a lot of people in my group do is like, if you're coming up to meet them, sometimes like sellers are weird, right? Like sellers don't really understand the game. But you'll find a lot of times when like when you're in negotiation and you're going back and forth on offers and counter offers, and they say, you know, make them an offer for 250, and then they make you a counter for 280, and then you go, you know, what you could do is you say like, hey, listen, I'll do 260 or 270. Then they say, okay, I'll do 275. I say, and then you say, okay, I will do 275, but you cover closing costs. It's a weird psychological thing I found. Don't ask me why. You know, savvier sellers might know this. Looks like my camera overheated. Fucking Sony A7Cs, man. So you guys can still hear me, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to see my ugly mug. So essentially what you could do is you work it into the negotiation, right? If you come up to their number, ask for it as a concession. Okay. Now the super ninja backdoor way of doing it is this: you estimate what your closing costs are going to be. Okay. And then you get into contract. Okay. At whatever purchase price you agree on. Now, once you're in contract, you estimate what your closing costs are going to be. Let's say your closing costs are going to be $20,000. What you do is such that you have enough on the loan and it's really not going to fuck you up too much. What you could do is you could finance those by saying, hey, listen, I'm going to offer you, we're in contract for 100,000. We're going to change. My offer is actually now 120,000. I'm redoing my offer. It's actually 120,000 now, but I'm asking for $20,000 at credit back at closing. Okay. So now the purchase price is now officially 120,000, but you're getting the $20,000 back at closing, which is inherently letting you finance the closing costs into the loan. Does that make sense, Marco?
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really smart. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, it's a rogue way to do it, but I'd say in the beginning, just try to get it in the negotiation because most times you'll get it. But again, do it I think the best time to do it is when you meet them at their number. So give them the number they want, but have them give you what you want, right? And
100%.
make it's less tangible than the number, right? Closing costs are like, all right, whatever, closing costs, you know, like we can think about it, right? Now, you know, some savvier guys will be like, no, fuck that. The closing costs are 15 grand. So you're just going to end up getting what you get. But again, I found that that's something that happens. That's actually, if anybody did the math here, if everyone's like super smart, you know, I said that I put $9,500 down on 350,000. It actually should have been closer to like 13 or 12.5. I actually ended up technically putting down 2.7% down, because what happened was I put my earnest money down, and then the money I was supposed to come up with closing came back to me anyway in form of the seller credit, because I got the seller to cover like 6%. So they actually I actually got money back at closing. So I ended up like putting down, that's like a little cool, tricky way of being able to even put less down at closing.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question.
Awesome. All right. I know Derek had a good one.
Yeah, Derek, what's up, man?
Oh, what's happening? Hey, real quick, I missed the first 2 hours. Forgive me, please.
All good.
My question was on the home style loan. Qualifications for a home style loan as an investment property if we already currently own a home. Possible?
Sure. Absolutely. So the stupid, this is the lending world when you work with banks, is you don't call it an investment. You call it a second home or a vacation home or another residence. Okay. The second you say that word investment, it spooks every bank on the planet. Okay.
Gotcha.
So what you're doing is, the same way people are doing a lot of Airbnbs these days, they're putting like the 10% down on Airbnbs, and that, they're claiming that they're their second homes. And there's, you gotta say that you're there 14 days a year, 7 days a year, or whatever it is. The same rules apply with the home style. It's the same shit. So you put 15% down, as long as, again, you do also have to qualify on it. Usually you have to qualify on it on your own. There's a lot of lenders out there that'll get flexible with you on this. If you make it a vacation home,
I don't think I qualify.
okay.
I don't have a W-2, and everything's that I have are assets in the bank, so.
Yeah.
My wife actually had to qualify for our current home.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's if you have like, it depends on your statements and everything. I mean, at that rate, if it's just asset based, that's obviously where you start going for DSCR loans or something like that. Home style is doable. I would say it's always worth trying and worth looking at. The guidelines and the stipulations are a lot looser on home style. Fannie Mae is not as strict with guidelines. I'm not saying it'll work for you. I can't say without knowing your whole financial situation. And even if I did, I'm not a lender, so I couldn't tell you either way. But at the end of the day, like, I do know there's some flexibility there. Home styles are really, 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 203Ks are definitely a best kept secret, but home styles are like, I mean, it's just it's such cheap money, and you could buy so many like Airbnbs and shit like that. I have a love-hate thing with Airbnbs. I personally don't do them, but I think that a lot of people got very overzealous with Airbnbs in the last couple of years, and that's causing a little bit of tightening with home styles. But from what I've seen in the past, people have been able to still make things happen because their qualification requirements aren't really as tight as a conventional bank loan or something like that.
Right on. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, man. Great question. Give it a shot. Check it out. See, talk to a couple lenders. They might be willing to do it for you,
Yeah, no, I got one in specific here in Arizona that is a buddy. So we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, man. Good luck with it. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll help you out on it.
For sure.
Awesome. And the man, looks like we got Josh here to finish it up.
Hey, what's up, Matt?
Josh, what's up, dude?
Not much. Thank you for being here and sharing all this amazing knowledge with us, because this stuff can really open a lot of doors for people.
Hell yeah, man. Glad to be here, and everyone's asking awesome questions, and I know this you guys are going to take this and run with it. That's what's exciting about it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I have a question about the consultant. Like, so a 203 consultant, would that be the same as like a HUD consultant, or is that different?
Yeah, so it's kind of the terms interchangeable, right? HUD consultant, 203K consultant, they're the same thing, right? So if you Google like 203K, or you go to like 203khudconsultant.com, there'll be a list of HUD consultants. Here's a little quick hack for you. If you Google 203K HUD consultants, and you go and you'll get the list. So basically what you do is you could just look by your state. That's kind of the best way that they do it. That's the best way to do it anyway. So you click your state. You don't want to look up their ID or name or anything like that. Actually, can I share my screen?
Yeah.
All right. Do you see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So okay, so I'm gonna go back. So I Google 203K consultants, you go here. Okay. Select your state. I'll just use what state are you in?
Ohio.
Okay. So you go to Ohio. Okay. This is every 203K consultant that is currently active in Ohio. Okay. Here's a hack. This number here, okay, it's sequential. Got it? So the higher the number, the newer they are. The lower the number, the older they are. So it's sequential across the US. So these are newer guys, 1853, 1024, 94. Okay. So he's the 94th 203K consultant that has ever done work in the US for the P, I forget which P is. This is like the office, their home office is like regional, but basically like this is a low number, right? So ideally, this isn't a hard, fast rule, but usually if this guy's still in business and he's been doing this for as long as he has, because he has such a low number, he's been doing this for several years, right? So he probably is a little more experienced than, Mr. 1941, right? This guy is 1,000, 1,800 places further ahead than Mr. Bowman, right? So guys, listen, again, like I told you, like 203K consultants, just because they're on this list does not pre-qualify them for knowing what they're talking about. There's lots of people, probably, if not most people on this list, just got it to put an extra feather in their hat as another thing that they offer, but most of them don't do many, right? Who's familiar with the 80-20 rule, right? So 80-20 rule, 20% of the people do 80% of the volume. It's probably even more aggressive on this, probably like a 10-90 or a 5-95. There's probably, out of this whole list, there's probably 1 or 2 that are doing all of the shit in Ohio. So what you want to do is you want to identify those people. Now, here's the thing, guys. If you hire a good lender that's really doing a lot of these in your market and they know 203K loans, it's kind of like I say, it's like, oh, if you get arrested, you don't have a lawyer. It's like one of those things like, oh, you know, the cops tells you, I'm not saying I haven't been arrested, but you know, you watch on TV, like, hey, you know, if you don't have a lawyer, one will be provided for you. The 203K consultant works for you, the borrower. Okay. You pay them, you're the one that, and you can wrap that into the loan, stuff like that. But they work for you. They don't work for the lender. But if you don't have one going in, or you have one that they don't know or anything like that, they will provide it for you. So ideally, if you're working with a very good lender that's experienced with this and understands this process, they're going to be putting you, it's Tom McCulloch. I think I mentioned this guy to you, right, Josh? Did I?
Bill Rich is the guy you sent me.
Well, Bill's the lender, right? But Tom McCulloch he's the man. He's the man you want to talk to. He has this thing called Makeover Homes. Listen, Tom's a good dude. We talk a lot. He's trying to like do like a done for you 203K home style service. And he's like, he finds the contractors, he basically does and coordinates everything for you. He's more for the retail buyer. Okay. So Tom's a great dude and you could use him, and he knows his shit. But at the end of the day, he's not going to understand if you're really trying to be an investor on it. He'll pretend he will, but at the end of the day, like he's trying to provide his service, like he's trying to make money on his thing. So he might push you into. Tom's a great dude, but I'm just telling you, like, that is his world. I'm more on the investment side, and that's kind of where we have the disconnect, me and him. You know, he's just trying to get you over to the finish line and get you a nice fancy house when you're done. I'm trying to make you fucking money. Right. But Tom's really good. He knows what he's doing. But again, the point I'm getting at is your lender, like if Bill Rich is going to put you in the contact. He very well might put you in contact with Tom. And if not, he'll know whoever the other hitters are in the market.
Okay. Yeah.
That's helpful, guys. Does this make, a little hack for you guys? Hopefully this.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And that kind of brought me to like a second part of that question is like, okay, so what's a good like question, or like maybe 1 or 2 questions to ask them to vet like them?
To vet them. I just like to ask, like, how many are you doing currently? Like, how many 203Ks are you working on right now? That's a good one.
I know you said like,
where, what size projects are they? 203K consultants, again, are pretty easy to find. You could pretty much just use listen, I'm a New Yorker. I have a perpetual bullshit meter. Most people do. Like if they sound like they're talking out of their ass, they probably are. If these guys know what they're doing, you're going to hear it in their voice. Right. I would ask them, there's a thing I have in there, but in my group, in my program, but I'll send it to you, dude. Just remind me or text me. But basically, ultimately what it is like, just cue them on like, hey, how many? Yeah, I'm looking to do this. Like, how experienced are you with these? How many you have active right now? Is there any lenders that you work with? Any realtors that you work with? Are you able to take on one more? That type of thing. They're very easy to find. Easier than others. 203Ks. Sometimes I say, if you're having trouble finding lenders in your market, go down and call that. Just go on that website, reverse engineer it. Right. We were saying before, go on, look at all the 203K consultants and ask them with lenders they work with successfully. Right. The whole idea is like, who knows better than them who the 203K lenders are in their market? You go to them direct. Again, Josh, you're ahead of the game. We spoke offline, and you're with Bill, who's going to be one of the best in the business. This guy's done a bajillion of them, so he knows where, and he does them nationwide. It doesn't matter. So
cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions across the board, man. Dustin,
Awesome, guys.
you guys came in heavy. you brought the whole squad. I love it.
Oh yeah, I mean everybody's been engaged. We haven't seen any decrease really here. I think
Yeah.
everybody's getting massive value. I'm excited about that. That's what we aim for here, is to provide the value. And I knew that you would come in hot. But thanks so much for all the questions. You guys can find him at 203K. Remember,
Yeah,
no period.
Instagram. Guys, follow me on Instagram at the 203K way. Again, like Dustin said, not an extra period. There's a lot of fucking imposters. It's the bane of my existence. It's frustrating. If you follow me, some bozo is going to follow you and try to offer you crypto. I will not do that. I don't really like crypto, to be honest. And yeah, it's not me. I only talk about real estate. At the 203K way. Show me love on Instagram. That's the best place to find me. Just look up the 203K way on YouTube. Everybody here, if you know, hopefully you found value in this. Way you could give me back value. The biggest thing that'll help me is you know, like and share my YouTube stuff, comment on it, you know, be engaged on YouTube. I'm trying to grow YouTube. I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to be a YouTuber, make my nieces and nephews proud. But you know, really I'm just trying to carve out, you know, you search up 203K on YouTube and there's still a bunch of, I don't want to be mean, but there's still a lot of people on there that are top of the list that still to this day just don't understand this process, and yet they're making videos about it and they're saying shit that's completely inaccurate. I'm trying to be the front and center of this and give people more of that. So go ahead, follow me on there. But yeah, Instagram and YouTube, the best places to find me.
Awesome, man. Yeah, everybody go show him some love on all those. Go ahead and subscribe to his YouTube. Clearly the value that he provided today is worth that much. He's got tons more value that you can find on his YouTube. He is a TikToker. He's that guy too, so you can find him on TikTok.
Yeah, on TikTok, I'm flipping houses, which I shouldn't be. I created it when I was like actively flipping houses, and then the 203K way started. So it's funny because like I don't want to give up that name though. I think it's kind of a cool name to have, flipping houses. It's like a cool whatever. But yeah, I'm flipping houses on TikTok. I'm not too active on there, but Instagram, I usually just cross post and shit. But yeah, Dustin, I appreciate you, man. Like, thanks for organizing this. You're the man. I mean, what you're doing is incredible, and I'm glad we've become buddies. But you know, I'm happy to do this again one day. I'm happy to help people out, but you know, ultimately I'm an open book. You guys can contact me anytime. On my Instagram, I do have guys that are running my account from time to time. So if you are here for Powerhouse and you hit me up on DMs, just make mention of that. Just be like, hey, I'm, you know, Josh from Powerhouse. That way my team will know that, you know, you're looking for me directly, and they'll let me know to get back to you on, and so that way, you know, you're talking with me personally.
It's the price of fame.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's funny, man, because it's true. I mean, it is. It's become like crazy. I couldn't. I was trying to answer my own DMs, and then it got out of control. But yeah,
awesome, guys. Well, I mean, if you guys have any other questions, definitely find him in his group, DM. Remember, mention Powerhouse. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Show him some love. He didn't have to give his time tonight to come in here and give massive value, but just from the comments and the sheer amount of people that are still in here, clearly we know that he provided massive value. So let's just give him a round of applause. Thank you for his time. And if you have any other questions, definitely reach out to him. His time is very valuable. So we'll just respect that. Let him get back to his family.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you all. Reach out. Don't be strangers. Yeah, we'll do it again sometime. Thanks, Dustin. Appreciate you.
Definitely.
Appreciate you. Have a good one.
So much.
Bye, guys.